make any progress with those pawns if you put, so that's Denny. That's, I mean, we've seen Hikaru come back from bad positions, but they have to be dynamic.
Yeah.
They can't be static. So it wasn't, that was a Magnus overpressing, but Hikaru didn't blunder. These are two of the players who I'd say blundered the least in the world, which is
Right.
why they're two of the,
From a psychological perspective,
yeah.
also just huge for Nakamura, given that he's the underdog in the match, to strike there and show that Magnus is not going to run away with it. The score is even.
So I should be getting one thing. I'm the only one who predicted it might be quite competitive in Blitz. I hope there's some special prize for the world's best. Well, the match is early now, but I have an incentive here.
If you win the expert pick with a tied Blitz portion, and I'll give you a special prize. I don't know what it is, but it might just be like a hug or a hoodie or something.
No. I'm hoping for more.
I know money talks and everything else walks, but a few smiles from the room. Remind everybody, Hikaru Nakamura is playing in front of a live crowd in South Africa. Shout out to the organizers there. Some smiles and cheers there after Hikaru got his first win in the match. And by the way, Eric, for our advanced chess players, apparently Rook takes e3 was winning. On King takes e3, there's Bishop b4 skewering the Queen in the e1 square, and then Queen e5, Queen e1 is mate on Queen c2.
Oh, that is...
So Rook takes e3 was actually a crazy computer win that we all missed. I'm being told that by our I didn't calculate that. That's by our engine expert who loves when the computers are right.
That's often when you overpush. Your intuition says there's a win here. You can't find it.
Right.
And you're still trying to play it or make it work. But that's what happened. Magnus felt was winning, which is why he went for that very complicated line with the pawn sacrifice.
Yep.
When there was a win. So I think his intuition was right, but very hard to find with under 2 minutes on the clock.
Shout out to Andrew Saloni and all the other subs that we had over the last few minutes that I forgot to shout out. Thank you for that. And sorry, I can't shout out everybody.
Back to the position here, Danny.
Yep.
This is not a good position for Hikaru because he's just getting cramped.
Yep.
And he doesn't have tactics. He doesn't have good pieces. This is not the way to rebound, to continue the momentum.
It's one of those positions where there's only one open file and white controls every square here. And b6 is a target, d6 is a target. It feels like Hikaru's just going to have to sit tight and hope that Magnus doesn't find a win.
If it's going to be a sort of match where the players trade blows, that's where I think Hikaru can do very well.
Right.
But the one thing I noticed between playing the two players is if Magnus is on a roll, I mean, he beat me like 10 or 12 games in a row, which has never happened in my life. When he's on a roll, he just steamrolls everyone. We saw that in the World Blitz. There's like no other level. No one has a comparable level like that. So he needs to keep it like a very sharp, like you just can't let Magnus get into the groove, which I think, that's very important. That's a scary level, which doesn't always happen. A scary
level, a Magnus level.
Yeah.
Yeah, the knight comes into d6 now, as we said. That square is owned by white, but Hikaru maybe gets some breathing room here on the b file. How is he going to deal with b5? Is he taking a4 or pushing b4?
I think he's playing knight b4 right now. I think he's going to play knight b4 because there's going to, if the c file opens and b5 hangs, c2 is also hanging.
Yeah,
so knight b4 and maybe rook d8.
Though, right, for the bishop.
Yes. Bishop c4, queen d2, and then you have to start worrying about rook d7 and yeah, so I think knight b4 is safer just to protect rook d7. Okay, queen b7.
Also okay with the same idea of what you were saying, right? Kind of maintain the tension here with the b and a pawn and keep the b4 square open for the knight.
But there's going to be a fight for that d7 square, and okay, so
super nice idea there, everybody, by Magnus. Bishop h3 is really all about removing the defender of this d7 square.
Queen c8, king h2. And expect to see bishop c5 but queen c8 is good because the king h2 there's maybe knight e6.
Yeah, king h2, knight e6. I think is forced to stop
b5's hanging in that line. You can take on b5 twice.
And the question is there a knight d4 tap?
Oh, there's knight d4.
Yeah,
yes,
intermezzo cutting off the point. Everybody is some idea where black can put the knight here and take away the protection of the rook. Okay, but Magnus is going to keep those rooks connected and not allow knight d4 to be a guerrilla tactic. But okay, Hikaru is still
defending.
Look
at the speed here. No, you can tell by how much time the players are using who's
exactly.
more comfortable right now.
Yep. And again,
Queen
it's
D3.
one of those dynamics we rarely see. Magnus so much up on time
Queen
against
D1.
Hikaru.
The knight on d4 is the only thing keeping Hikaru in this game. But
that was a huge...
he's fighting...
Yeah, and now if he gets rook b7, I mean, he actually looks like he's simplifying.
I agree. No, he's fighting hard here. Yeah. And we're getting a mix of positions. That's always good.
And from a body language perspective, which we have the
Ooh,
nice
wait,
thing here.
what is that? Knight A4? Oh no, the
Knight
rook's
A4.
hanging. Sorry, no, this rook's hanging. I was like, why do you give yourself a bad pawn structure? But knight takes C3, of course, is a threat. So this simplifies, but white's still preferable with a d file. Also, the better bishop. Bishop on G7 is not doing anything right now.
But again, if we're evaluating this position from what it was a few moves ago, you have to feel like black has kind of seen the worst of it, right?
Yes. Although at least it's for Hikaru, who's defended very well. For Magnus, there's no risk here unless he blunders the E4 pawn. He's got a little bit of a better position. So,
well, I was just about to say that from a body language perspective, Magnus finally stopped bobbing his head to music, but then he starts dancing again. So I think he dances when he feels confident. That's just I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. So,
so yeah, if rook d7, king g8 is going to be played. I'm expecting c4. Okay. So Magnus might be playing c5.
He doesn't care about moves like rook b3.
No, rook b3. Unless you're generating something on the king side, which you're not, because the bishop on e3 defends f2 so well. And
the big issue here is that black really has two weaknesses, right? f7 and c6, and white really has none.
So he did this, which it's either going to equalize fairly soon, or this is a bad decision. Otherwise, maybe rook b7 was an alternative. But bishop h6 take, queen check, and maybe queen c5, Danny? Right. What do you think of queen check and queen c5? Hitting c6 and hitting e5. So queen e3 check.
King G7.
King h7. Well, king g7, queen c5, and I'm hitting e5 also with check. Okay. So maybe king h7, but then the king side feels pretty bare.
Yes, you start looking at tactics like rook d7, and then maybe...
Well, the question is, do you do rook d7 first? And if king g7, queen d6? Either way, this position has some serious holes. No, this is not equal. Despite the sort of symmetrical structure, black's king is in some danger. White has the initiative and free play right now. If king, actually, this is a problem. The queen and the rook are not coordinated for black.
Yeah, if the queen comes into d6 now and the rook comes to e8, does white just have queen c7?
Queen c7, precisely. Yeah. No, then queen c4.
Queen c4 would defend.
Queen
f7.
c4 defends.
Okay,
so in time. Okay, he's in time. That was key. That c4 defends everything.
Yeah, well, if Hikaru can hold this and get a draw, it would be changing the momentum of last year's match, Eric. Last year there was only one draw in the 9 games they played in the 5-minute portion. So they've already drawn one, and we'll see if Hikaru can defend this bad position here. But it's looking really ominous, especially given that he's down on time. This is the Magnus Carlsen squeeze. Rook c7, opens up queen d7. He's just really going to try to sit on this position and make Hikaru blunder.
Yeah, you feel like you got to move that queen on a4 at some point. You don't want to lose because your queen was offside for a dozen moves.
But you've got the c6 pawn you're babysitting, right? And
so rook f8. No, this is very uncomfortable. Rook f8. I like that he played that quickly because we're not finding anything that actually solves the issue. So you just gotta, bunker down here.
Right. Yeah, so clearly white's in the driver's seat, but the question is, will there eventually be a way for this queen to kind of double attack, pawns here, pawns here, pawns here, without black picking up the c4 pawn and coming back in just in time? So that's what Magnus is going to calculate here with his 1.5-minute time advantage.
Well, I'm trying to find a breakthrough for Magnus. Otherwise, he's got to find some slow moves like queen c3. But queen c3, rook e8, what really changes? So you could go queen d6 and try to win the eve pawn and give up the c pawn. That would be dynamic, but I think Magnus wants to win it outright. All right, now queen d6. No, what just happened? This is a pawn up now. Queen takes c6, or queen takes e5.
Yeah, but I guess from the perspective...
I could not find a long-term hold, though. Either way, you're just sort of reacting to the moves of Magnus, and your pawns were at some point going to fall.
He's going to roll the dice in the rook ending rather than keep the dangers of the queen and rook on the 7th rank against the king. So he'll play rook a6 here. And now the king can get more active. He can get this black king to d6. Maybe he has a chance to hold the endgame. Here he comes. The king rush.
Yeah, if king e6, king g5, then king d6. and I just blundered my rook.
Again, we have an awkward self rook trap.
Well, I'm good at finding those blunders.
Magnus was testing you there, so he doesn't blunder his rook, but he may have to play a little tickle with the king here to make sure he avoids it. Funny how the rook is actually very awkwardly placed on the 5th rank, right? Maybe he'll play rook e8 because of that.
Well, rook e8. What do you do after rook a4? I think you're losing that pawn.
Yeah, and then we have our we have an equal rook ending. So
this way he's going to be playing maybe g5 and then g4 g5, kicking the king back to g7, a passive location, and then White's king will have ideas of marching down e5, d6, and putting pressure on c6. I think Magnus is open to the idea of giving up a kingside pawn if he can win c6 and get that c pawn rolling.
Yeah, in these types of endgames, it really doesn't matter which passed pawn becomes. So if Magnus can play h5, though, that's going to create real problems. The king will have to choose.
We're going to see h5. We're going to see h5, I think.
Now the black king will have to choose between defending the queen side or rushing back to guard the h-pawn.
And now time is going to be a big factor because in these rook end games, it's like the difference between a win and a draw, and technically very difficult.
Yep.
So king d6.
Okay, well,
rook g5 is what I'm expecting. Rook g5 here. And black will have to take on h5 because of rook a4. There will be c5 check first. Okay, he takes.
Wait a second.
And if that's nice, if king takes c5, g takes f7,
and he's going
to bring his 2 passed pawns and his king to f6.
Hikaru gives a skeptical head turn, but I think he's going to realize that Magnus is in the right and just take back on g6. But that makes this endgame.
If you take back on g6, you're lost.
Yeah, easily,
I play rook g5, c5 check, and I pick up g6.
Yeah,
and I'm up 2 pawns.
G6 with check even.
Very nice.
Super instructive technique there by Magnus. Honestly, accurate calculation in the critical moments is how you convert on these slight advantage endgames, and he doesn't miss his opportunity to punish Hikaru for letting him sack the rook.
So he's going to do rook takes if king's. Oh, okay.
He either way, right now he's winning.
Either way,
this check, is. And Hikaru is just going to throw in the towel. So kind of a tough loss there, given that it was very Magnus Carlsen-esque.